On everybody, I'm back with another video, and this video is going to be by two Italian teams, Inter and Juventus. And now, before we start, just again, I'm using Keyframe for this video, and we're going to get into a little tactical board just to show some variations, some theory. So let's get right into it. This is tactical board, just a great way to create quality content and produce high quality illustrations to increase learning and the cognitive aspect of the game. So let's get right into the tactical board aspect, which will show some variations of movement building up from Juventus and their shape and their structural changes they go through with rotations and whatnot. Guys, I hope you enjoyed that video. So now this is going to be a quicker video, but let's get right into it. And this is my first time really analyzing Juventus since Andrea Pirlo took over as head coach, so keep that in mind. But today they played Inter in the Coppa Italia, and their main rotation, or the main thing, was a center midfielder. So this is Rabiot, and he's dropping between the two center defenders, creating a back three. And then what was interesting was, now when this happened, the fullbacks would then invert. They would invert, and this would create midfield three with two inverted fullbacks. And these fullbacks would often go as far as the half spaces, but sometimes they would go just on the interior part of the wide corridor. And their variations did vary in width a little bit depending on the situation and where the space was. So with this happening, oftentimes with the inverted fullback, this would signal to Quadrado and the left winger on the weak side to then occupy the wide area. So when this happened, we can see the strong 5-3-2 shape of Inter, that their favored formation. And with this, the three midfielders, I can make that a little better. The three midfielders from Inter are now more drawn forward to the two inverted fullbacks and to the holding midfielder who still has the pivot. And by playing between the two strikers, they are influenced by the central pivot as well as the wide center backs who are in the half space building from the back. So with this is a means to then exploit the space between the lines. I'm just going to highlight it very quickly, the space between the lines for Juventus. So just to keep that in mind as we move forward through the video, this was the main shape, this was the main structure, and the main aspects within the game. So now, even from a deeper third in their build-up third, they were pretty reluctant to use Buffon in possession. They did a few times, but not to build out. It was just out of necessity and consolidating possession. So even right away, and it was Bentancur most of the time who would drop deeper between two center backs, allowing them to fan out and occupy each half space. And then right away we have the two fullbacks now inverting and playing in through the half spaces. And one thing to notice is just the slight details of varying which vertical line they are. So Essentially, it looked as though Juventus split the half spaces into an interior and exterior part of the wide corridor, so they create these slight diagonal passing angles between them. So with this, it just gives them another dimension to play through and makes it harder to defend and easier for them to circulate the ball and then look to progress it further forward. It also attracts the defense, the midfielders, slightly more, as we see here, and it gives more time and space to the wider areas. It also gives him different passing options from the wider areas, which we'll look at right now. I'm just going to highlight the two forwards in the next picture. So now, when the ball is played from De Ligt into the wider area, we can see now, I'm going to put the marker here just to show where the connections would be. We can just see how many connections they are able to create in the mutual help space. And as we know, in the mutual help space, the primary objective is to manipulate defense, open up passing options, and play between defenders. So just from here, the player on the ball has multiple diagonal and forward passing options. So these press-resistant structures gives them very good cover around the ball and a lot of short passing options. So as we can see again, as we mentioned in the first scene, the midfield three from Juventus with the two inverted fullbacks pulls the midfielders from Inter further forward, and now we even see the picture of the wide player jumping to press the Juventus player on the ball. So one, by having these lone wingers, it attracts the wingbacks from Inter to go and press, and this leaves players like Ronaldo and the center forward to exchange and work off of each other to create this positional superiority between the lines and through the half space. So this overload around the ball helps create stronger, tighter connections as well as a faster transition. So now, the next picture, I just wanted to show a picture with the full Inter Milan shape. The 5-3-2. We're missing the right wing back, but we can assume he's holding the width being drawn out by the Juventus winger. So just keep that in mind as the wide player's pinned, and then now we even get a glimpse of Ronaldo and how he varies his position and has a lot of positional freedom within the team. But now we see Juventus go with the back two, and then now we can notice what happens when they don't use their back three. So again, we still use our fullbacks in a more half-space position, but still creating diagonal passing options through the center backs, but with the focus on the half spaces rather than the wide area. So it shortens the passing distance, allows the pass to move faster, and now we have our lone pivot. And what happens to our other holding midfielder, Rabiot? He's able to now go higher, and now we see the center forward come between the lines because Ronaldo is higher, so just varying their height and width and which side they are on. So a very fluid structure from Andrea Pirlo's team, and they take these positional cues and work off of each other very well, whether it's dropping or stepping and occupying dangerous space and trying to exploit these areas. So now, just wanted to take one look at Juventus's defensive shape and their 4-4-2, with Ronaldo having less of a defensive role and more, his job was more maintain compactness and cut the three center defenders off from each other. And I just wanted to take a little time to note Inter Milan's offensive structure. Although it's pretty poor here, They usually have Lukaku, especially against the back four. It can work quite well. They usually have Lukaku drop in between the lines into the space between four Juventus players. And by this happening, we then now have Martinez. Wrong tool. We then have Martinez threatening in behind when the defender steps. So when this happens, it usually completes the midfield three, as we're a little drawn to one side here for Inter, but it usually creates the midfield three or the midfield four, I should say, sorry about that. So the two double pivots and then the two attacking midfielders through the half space. It usually completes this structure, this movement, and creates a dynamic advantage in behind. And now I just wanted to show one more time in build-up. We had mentioned before how Juventus didn't really use Buffon unless completely necessary in the build-up phase, and here's just an emphasis of this, and we're just showing just how deep the holding midfielder will drop in the build-up phase, and then this really overextends Inter and creates some advantages in which they can play, but a lot of times this shape from Juventus became very vertical, and such a heavy occupation between the first and second line leads to a lot of circulation but not as much progression, and because of the overcrowded space at times between first and second line, then the underloaded spaces ahead of the ball between the lines and then in behind, it can create some tough dynamics for the team, but nonetheless the theory is there and the spaces are there to be exploited. So just wanted to do a quick analysis of Italian game, Juventus and Inter. So please like and subscribe to the channel, that would be great. So I'll see you for the next one.